Hello there, and welcome to Prehistoric Earth, where quiet curiosity meets the deep end of science and wonder is allowed to take its time. Tonight, we're not looking up at the stars or back through the ages. We're looking down, straight down, into the part of our planet we know least about, understand least about, and, if we're being honest, fear most deeply: the ocean. Not the bright, familiar ocean of beach vacations and nature documentaries, not the shallows where sunlight dances and colorful fish dart between coral. No, tonight we're going to sink slowly past the light, past the warmth, past the world we recognize. And as we descend, we're going to meet the creatures that live in eternal darkness, creatures that seem designed by nightmare, creatures that become, with every passing meter, more unsettling, more alien, more terrifying. There's something about the deep ocean that touches an ancient part of the human mind, a place where teeth are too long, eyes are too large, mouths open too wide, where bodies glow in the blackness, where pressure would crush us in an instant, where life has taken forms that seem impossible, obscene, beautiful in a way that makes us uncomfortable. We've sent humans to the moon, we've landed rovers on Mars, we've photographed black holes and detected gravitational waves from colliding neutron stars billions of light years away. And yet, the deepest parts of our own planet remain largely unexplored. More people have walked on the lunar surface than have visited the bottom of the Mariana Trench. We know more about the topology of Venus than we do about our own ocean floor. This isn't just an oversight, it's a testament to how hostile, how alien, how fundamentally unreachable the deep ocean really is. Before we begin our descent, I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from tonight and what time it is where you are. Are you near the ocean right now? Can you hear it, smell it, feel its pull? Or are you far inland, safe and dry, about to imagine yourself sinking into depths you'll never physically touch? Either way, I'm glad you're here. We're about to go somewhere few humans have ever been, and the creatures waiting for us don't know we're coming. They've never seen sunlight, they've never felt warmth, they've been evolving in darkness for millions upon millions of years, and they are waiting, patient, hungry, strange beyond our ability to fully comprehend. If this kind of slow journey into the unknown is your kind of journey, I'd be thankful if you tapped like or subscribed. It helps this little channel reach other curious minds who prefer their science served with wonder rather than rush. No pressure, of course, just an invitation, like a light flickering in the darkness, calling something closer. So settle in, maybe dim the lights if you can, let your breathing slow, and imagine yourself suspended in water, beginning to sink, leaving the sun behind. Because the deeper we go, the stranger things get. And the strangest things of all are waiting at the bottom, in places where even time seems to move differently, where creatures can live for centuries, where a single meal might sustain a body for years. We're going down, and we're going to take our time getting there. To understand why deep-sea creatures seem increasingly terrifying the further down you go, you first have to understand what's happening to the ocean itself as you descend. Because the deep sea isn't just dark water, it's a completely different world, one governed by forces so extreme that life there has had to become extreme to survive. The rules that apply at the surface simply don't hold in the abyss, and the creatures that live there are the living proof of just how far biology can bend before it breaks. At the surface, the ocean is familiar. Light penetrates easily, temperature varies with the seasons and the latitude, waves move through, currents carry nutrients, fish swim in patterns we recognize, predators chase prey, plants photosynthesize. It's an ecosystem that makes sense to us because in many ways it mirrors life on land. We can imagine ourselves swimming there. We can hold our breath and dive down, feel the water embrace us, and return to the air within minutes. The surface ocean feels like an extension of our world, a wet version of home. But as you sink below the surface, everything begins to change, and it happens faster than most people realize. Within the first few meters, colors begin to disappear. Red light is absorbed first, then orange, then yellow. By the time you're 30 meters down, the world is turned blue and green, and it keeps darkening. Keep going, and even those colors fade. The ocean swallows light like it's hungry for it, and in a way it is. Water is not the transparent medium we imagine it to be. It's a filter, stripping away wavelength after wavelength until nothing remains but darkness. The first thing you lose is light. Sunlight, the energy source for nearly all life on Earth, doesn't travel well through water. Even in the clearest ocean, light begins to fade within the first few meters. By the time you reach around 200 meters, you've entered what scientists call the twilight zone. Here, only the faintest blue light remains. Not enough for photosynthesis, not enough to see clearly, just enough to create a dim, ghostly glow that fades to nothing as you continue down. At this depth, the world above is just a memory, a fading bruise of blue that gets darker with every meter you sink.
Below 1,000 meters, you enter the midnight zone, and the name is not poetic exaggeration. It is absolute, permanent darkness. No sunlight has touched this water in millions of years. Nothing grows here in the traditional sense. There are no plants, no coral, no seaweed, just blackness, pressure, and cold. If you could somehow survive at this depth without equipment, you would see nothing. Your eyes would strain against the void and find only void staring back. This is darkness so complete that it has weight, presence, substance. It is not simply the absence of light, it is a positive force pressing in from all sides.
And speaking of pressure, at sea level, the atmosphere presses down on us with a weight we call 1 atmosphere. We don't notice it because our bodies have evolved to balance it. But water is denser than air, much denser. Every 10 meters you descend into the ocean adds another atmosphere of pressure. By the time you reach the average depth of the ocean, around 3,688 meters, the pressure is over 350 times what you experience standing on a beach. At the deepest point in the ocean, the Challenger Deep in the Mariana Trench, the pressure exceeds 1,000 atmospheres. That's roughly 15,000 pounds pressing down on every square inch of your body. Imagine an elephant standing on your thumbnail. Now imagine 100 elephants. That's what every inch of your body would experience at the bottom of the sea. For humans, this is instantly fatal. Our lungs would collapse, our cells would be crushed, our bones would splinter. Even submarines designed for deep exploration must be built with extraordinary precision, because a single flaw can mean implosion. The pressure differential is so extreme that a breach doesn't just let water in, it causes the vessel to collapse inward faster than the eye can see. In 2023, the submersible Titan imploded while attempting to reach the Titanic wreckage at 3,800 meters. The passengers died so quickly, they likely didn't even register what was happening. That's the reality of deep-sea pressure. It doesn't negotiate, it doesn't warn, it simply destroys. But life persists. Creatures live in these conditions. They move, hunt, reproduce, and die in a world that would destroy us in seconds. And the forms they've taken to survive are unlike anything on the surface. Their bodies don't fight the pressure, they become one with it. Their cells are full of water, which is incompressible, so there's no air to crush. Their proteins are stabilized by special compounds that prevent them from deforming under the weight. They have become creatures of the deep in the most fundamental sense. They couldn't survive at the surface any more than we could survive in their world. Then there's the cold. At the bottom of the ocean, temperatures hover just above freezing, typically between 1 and 4 degrees Celsius. This is not the kind of cold you feel on a winter day. This is a cold so constant, so unchanging, that it slows everything down. Metabolism creeps along at a fraction of surface rates. Growth takes decades. A fish that might reach maturity in 2 years at the surface might take 20 years in the deep. Creatures move languidly through the murk, conserving energy. because food is scarce and survival means efficiency. Every movement must be calculated. Every calorie must be hoarded. These three forces, darkness, pressure, and cold, have shaped every organism in the deep. And as each force intensifies with depth, so do the adaptations required to survive it. This is why the creatures become stranger the deeper you go. This is why their bodies twist into forms that disturb us. They are answers to questions the surface world never asks. How do you find food when you can't see? How do you attract a mate in total darkness? How do you survive when the pressure would crush a nuclear submarine? How do you eat when meals might be months or years apart? The answers are written in their bodies, and those answers look like nightmares. Let's start in the shallows and work our way down. Not to rush past the familiar, but to appreciate what changes as we sink. Because the transformation is gradual at first, then sudden, then absolute. And by the time we reach the bottom, we'll have traveled through multiple distinct worlds, each with its own rules, its own residents, its own brand of strangeness. In the sunlit zone, the top 200 meters, life is colorful and diverse. This is where most of the ocean's photosynthesis happens, where plankton bloom, where fish school in the millions. Predators here are sleek, fast, adapted to hunt in the light. Sharks cruise with streamlined grace. Dolphins leap and spin. Tuna flash silver as they chase smaller fish. There's danger here, certainly, but it's legible. We understand the rules. Hunt or be hunted, speed and strength. Nothing looks alien because everything evolved in conditions similar to those we know on land. The sunlit zone is also called the epipelagic zone, and it's where almost all of the ocean's productivity occurs. Phytoplankton, tiny plant-like organisms, capture sunlight and convert it into energy through photosynthesis. They form the base of the entire marine food web. Zooplankton eat the phytoplankton. Small fish eat the zooplankton. Larger fish eat the smaller fish, and so on, up to the apex predators. It's a system powered by the sun, regulated by light, familiar in its logic. We feel comfortable in this zone. Scuba divers explore here, snorkelers float on the surface and peer down into the blue. We swim with sea turtles and dolphins and manta rays. We watch the dance of reef fish through glass-bottom boats. This is the ocean we know, the ocean we love, the ocean that appears in our vacation photos and nature documentaries. It's beautiful, complex, and alive with color. But as you begin to descend past 200 meters, you enter the mesopelagic zone, the twilight zone, and immediately, the mood changes. Here, light is dim and directional. It comes only from above, creating a permanent dusk. The blue glow of the surface fades to something darker, something that feels like a bruise. Colors drain away. Everything becomes shades of blue and black. Many creatures here have developed larger eyes to capture what little light remains. Their eyes are massive relative to their bodies, dark orbs that stare out at a world that's almost invisible. Others have become experts at hiding from that light, their bodies developing dark backs and silvery sides that reflect nothing. This is called countershading, and it's a form of camouflage specifically adapted to the twilight zone. From above, a fish's dark back blends with the darkness below. From below, its silver belly matches the faint light from above. The creature becomes invisible from both directions, a ghost in the dimness. Camouflage in this zone isn't about blending into coral or sand. It's about becoming invisible against the faint glow of the surface above. It's about erasing your silhouette. Because in the twilight zone, the greatest danger often comes from below. Predators looking up can see the dark outline of prey against the last remnants of light. So the prey learns to glow. And here, for the first time, you begin to see bioluminescence, creatures that produce their own light, not to see by, but to communicate, to hunt, to confuse predators. A flash in the darkness might be a mating signal or a trap. It might be a desperate burst from a creature trying to startle something chasing it. The twilight zone is the first place where light becomes a weapon, a disguise, a language spoken only by those adapted to hear it. The animals here are still recognizable, mostly fish, squid, shrimp, but their proportions are beginning to shift. Eyes grow larger, bodies grow thinner, mouths begin to widen beyond what seems proportional. You can feel the pressure of evolution reshaping these creatures for a world that's getting harder to survive. The comfortable forms of the sunlit zone are bending, stretching, becoming something else. This is also the zone of daily vertical migration, the largest migration on Earth, though most people have never heard of it. Every night, billions upon billions of creatures rise from the twilight zone toward the surface to feed under cover of darkness. They eat the plankton and small fish in the rich waters above. Then, before dawn, they sink back down to the safety of the shadows. This migration moves more biomass than any other event on the planet. It happens every single night, and it's driven by one simple fact. The twilight zone is safer than the sunlit zone, but it has less food. So every night, the creatures of the deep take a calculated risk, rising toward the light to eat, then fleeing back to darkness before they become someone else's meal. And then, around 1,000 meters, you cross into true darkness, the bathypelagic zone, the midnight zone. This is where things begin to get genuinely unsettling. In the midnight zone, there is no light from above, none at all. The last photon of sunlight gave up hundreds of meters ago. The only illumination comes from the creatures themselves, flickers of blue and green in the blackness, brief pulses that might be signals or lures or warnings. The darkness isn't empty, it's alive, and the things moving through it have adapted to hunt and survive in ways that can seem almost malevolent to the human eye. This zone stretches from 1,000 to 4,000 meters, a vast column of black water where the only structure is the water itself. There's no floor, no ceiling, no walls, just infinite darkness in every direction. Creatures here don't swim through an environment, they swim through nothing. They are suspended in a void, navigating by senses we can barely comprehend. Consider the anglerfish, one of the most famous residents of the deep, and for good reason. The female anglerfish has a modified dorsal spine that extends from her head like a fishing rod, tipped with a bioluminescent lure. She dangles this light in the absolute blackness, waiting. Smaller creatures, drawn to the glow, swim closer, and when they do, they find themselves inches from a mouth full of needle-thin teeth, angled backward to prevent escape. The anglerfish doesn't chase, it doesn't pursue, it simply waits, a trap made flesh, using light as bait in a world without light. The anglerfish's body is almost comically disproportionate to our eyes. Her head is enormous, dominated by that gaping mouth. Her body tapers away into almost nothing. She looks like a floating head with teeth. Her mouth can open wide enough to swallow prey twice her size. Her stomach can expand to accommodate the meal. Her whole body is designed around one central purpose: eating whatever comes close, no matter how large. In a world where food is rare and encounters are unpredictable, the strategy is simple: eat whatever you can, whenever you can, because you never know when the next meal will come. An anglerfish might wait months between meals. Her metabolism slows to almost nothing. She drifts in the darkness, barely moving, conserving every calorie. And then, one day, something swims towards her light, and in an instant, she strikes. And then there's the matter of mating. Male anglerfish are tiny, a fraction of the female's size. In many species, they have no digestive system, no ability to feed themselves. Their only purpose is to find a female, bite into her body, infuse with her permanently. His bloodstream merges with hers. His body degenerates until he is little more than a set of reproductive organs attached to her side. She might carry multiple males, each one a small bump on her body, each one alive but no longer independent. It's efficient, yes, but it's also deeply strange, a form of parasitic reproduction that blurs the line between partnership and consumption. The male literally becomes parts of the female. He gives up his body, his autonomy, his separate existence, and in return, he gets to reproduce. It's a deal struck in the darkness, enforced by the brutal mathematics of survival. The anglerfish is just the beginning. The midnight zone is full of creatures that challenge our understanding of what bodies should look like. Take the gulper eel, also known as the pelican eel. Its most distinctive feature is its mouth, which is vastly larger than the rest of its body. The jaw can unhinge and expand like a net, scooping up prey in a single enormous gulp. The rest of the eel is thin, almost whip-like, trailing behind this massive mouth like an afterthought. It looks less like a fish and more like an appetite that grew a body just large enough to move. The gulper eel doesn't hunt in any traditional sense. It doesn't chase, it simply opens that impossible mouth and swallows whatever fits. Sometimes that includes creatures nearly as large as itself. The gulper eel also has a bioluminescent organ at the tip of its tail, which it may use to lure prey or communicate with other gulper eels. Imagine that, a creature that's essentially a giant mouth with a glowing tail, drifting through the darkness, waiting for something to swim close enough. It's not what we think of when we think of fish. It's not what we think of when we think of life. It's something else entirely, something shaped by conditions so extreme that normal body plans simply don't apply. Or consider the fangtooth fish. Relative to its size, it has the largest teeth of any fish in the ocean. These teeth are so long that the fangtooth has developed special sockets in its upper jaw, small pockets on either side of its brain, just to close its mouth. Without those sockets, the teeth would impale its own skull. It's a design that seems almost accidental, as if evolution was solving a problem it had already created, building compartments to contain a danger it couldn't reduce. The fangtooth can't bite in the normal sense. Those teeth are too long, too unwieldy. Instead, it uses them to trap prey, spearing small fish and shrimp and preventing them from escaping. Once something is caught on those teeth, there is no escape. Despite its terrifying appearance, the fangtooth is actually quite small, only about 6 inches long. But in the darkness of the midnight zone, size is relative. What matters is what you can catch and what can catch you. And those teeth, those terrible, beautiful teeth, make the fangtooth a formidable predator in its world. And then there are the viperfish, with their rows of transparent, needle-sharp teeth that curve backward and outward, giving the fish a permanent, terrible grin. Their bodies are slender and dark, their eyes are large and sensitive. Some have photophores, light-producing organs lining their bellies, a technique called counter-illumination. When viewed from below, the faint glow breaks up their silhouette, making them nearly invisible against the dim residue of light above. They are ambush predators, invisible until they strike. The viperfish can swim at high speeds when attacking, though it spends most of its time hovering motionless, waiting. When prey comes close, the viperfish strikes with explosive force, impaling the victim on those long teeth. The teeth are so long that the viperfish can't close its mouth normally. It has to open its jaw at an extreme angle to eat, swinging the prey back into its throat. The whole process is violent, sudden, and efficient. And then, the viperfish goes back to waiting. Hours, days, weeks, if necessary. What connects all these creatures is not just their appearance, but the logic behind it. In the midnight zone, energy is precious. Food is rare. You cannot afford to chase and miss. You cannot afford to be picky. Everything about these animals, their enormous mouths, their expandable stomachs, their lethal teeth, their patient stillness, is an answer to the question of how to survive in a world where meals may be weeks or months apart. And the deeper you go, the more extreme those answers become.
There are other residents of the Midnight Zone worth mentioning, creatures that don't often make the lists of terrifying deep-sea animals, but are no less strange for their obscurity. The hatchetfish, for instance, named for their thin, blade-like bodies that resemble the heads of hatchets. They have large, tubular eyes that point permanently upward, scanning the water above for the faint silhouettes of prey. Their bodies are covered in photophores, creating a glow that matches the dim light from above. From below, they're invisible. From above, they're watching. Always watching. The hatchetfish are small, usually just a few inches long, but their eyes are disproportionately large, sometimes taking up nearly half their head. Those eyes are incredibly sensitive, capable of detecting the faintest movement against the background glow. In a world without color, without contrast, the hatchetfish has evolved to see movement, to detect the slight darkening that means something edible is passing overhead. It's a specialist in a world of specialists, perfectly adapted to its narrow niche. Then there's the bear-eye fish, also known as the spookfish. Its head is transparent. You can see directly into its skull, where two large green tubular eyes sit inside the transparent dome, pointing upward. Those eyes can rotate within the head, shifting from looking straight up to looking forward when the fish spots prey. The transparent head protects the eyes from the stinging cells of jellyfish, which the bear eye often steals food from. When scientists first photographed the bear eye alive in its natural habitat, they were astonished. Previous specimens had been damaged during capture, their transparent heads collapsing when brought to the surface. Only in the deep, under natural pressure, could the true nature of this creature be seen. A fish with a window for a skull, looking up through its own face at the darkness above. It's beautiful in a way that's hard to articulate, and deeply, quietly unsettling. The black swallower is another resident of the Midnight Zone, and it has one of the most remarkable abilities of any fish. It can swallow prey more than twice its length and 10 times its mass. Its stomach can expand to enormous proportions, becoming a distended sac many times larger than the rest of its body. Scientists have found black swallowers that died after eating prey too large to digest, the meal rotting inside them, releasing gases that brought the dead fish floating to the surface. That's how some specimens have been discovered, not by catching them, but by finding their bodies bloated with meals they couldn't process. The strategy is extreme, but so is the environment. When you don't know when your next meal will come, and when prey at your depth is rare, you eat whatever you can catch, you swallow it whole, you digest what you can, and sometimes you die trying. But in the cold mathematics of evolution, the strategy works. Enough black swallowers survive their enormous meals to reproduce, passing on the genes for that expandable stomach, that hinged jaw, that desperate hunger. And then there are the creatures that don't look like fish at all, the giant siphonophores, for instance. These are colonial organisms, chains of individual creatures called zooids that link together to form a single superorganism. Some siphonophores can reach over 40 meters in length, making them among the longest animals on Earth. They trail through the darkness like living curtains, their stinging tentacles capturing anything that blunders into them. Each zooid has a specific function. Some catch prey, some digest food, some provide propulsion, some are responsible for reproduction. The siphonophore is not one animal, but many, working in perfect coordination, sharing nutrients, sharing purpose. When you see footage of a giant siphonophore spiraling through the deep, it looks like something from science fiction, something that shouldn't exist, something beautiful and terrible and utterly unlike anything on land.
Below the Midnight Zone, past 4,000 meters, you enter the abyssopelagic zone, the abyss. The word comes from the Greek abyssos, meaning bottomless, and while the ocean does have a floor, this zone stretches across vast plains of sediment that receive almost nothing from the world above. This is the realm of abyssal plains, flat expanses of mud and ooze covering the seafloor like a blanket of death. Nothing grows here, almost nothing moves, and yet life persists. The pressure here is immense, over 400 atmospheres. The temperature hovers near freezing. The darkness is absolute. And yet, if you were to somehow send a camera down, you would see movement. Slow, languid movement. Creatures that have adapted to this extreme environment through patience, efficiency, and anatomies that seem designed by a different logic than the one we know. Here, the pressure is crushing, the cold is constant, the darkness is total, and yet life persists. The creatures of the abyss are often slower, smaller, and more delicate than those above. Many are scavengers, waiting patiently for organic matter to drift down from the surface. This falling organic matter is called marine snow, and it's the primary food source for most abyssal life. Dead plankton, fecal pellets, shed scales, fragments of dead fish, all of it drifting down, slowly, through kilometers of dark water. By the time it reaches the bottom, most of the nutrients have been consumed or decomposed. What arrives is a thin, sparse rain of organic particles, barely enough to sustain life. But occasionally, something larger falls. A dead whale, for instance, can sustain an entire community for decades. These whale falls are oases in the desert, attracting hagfish, crabs, worms, and bacteria that strip the carcass down to bone, then colonize the skeleton itself. A single whale can support a succession of communities over 50 years or more. First, the mobile scavengers, hagfish and sleeper sharks, tearing away the soft tissue. Then the enrichment opportunists, worms and crustaceans, feeding on the organic material that seeps into the surrounding sediment. Finally, the sulfophilic bacteria, which break down the oils in the bones and create food for an entire ecosystem of specialized creatures. The hagfish is worth pausing on. It's sometimes called a slime eel, though it's not a true eel. Its most famous feature is its ability to produce enormous quantities of slime when threatened. This slime is thick, fibrous, and can clog the gills of predators, discouraging attack. A single hagfish can fill a bucket with slime in minutes. The slime expands when it contacts water, creating a thick, mucousy cloud that's both disgusting and effective. Few predators want to eat something that can turn into a bucket of snot. The hagfish itself is nearly blind, navigating by smell and touch. It burrows into the bodies of dead or dying fish, consuming them from the inside out. It has no jaws in the traditional sense. Instead, it has 2 rows of tooth-like structures that move side to side, rasping away flesh. It enters a carcass through any available opening and eats its way through, emerging when the meal is done. It's not a beautiful animal. It's not even particularly frightening in the traditional sense, but there's something about the hagfish that feels deeply, fundamentally alien. Its lack of jaws, its simple, almost worm-like structure, its method of eating. It seems less like a fish and more like something left over from an earlier, stranger era of life. And in a way, that's exactly what it is. Hagfish are ancient. Their lineage stretches back over 300 million years. They've survived multiple mass extinctions. They have no bones, no vertebrae in the traditional sense, and no true stomach. They are reminders that life doesn't always progress toward complexity. Sometimes it finds a niche and stays there, unchanged for epochs. At these depths, gigantism sometimes occurs. The giant isopod, for example, looks like a woodlouse that grew to the size of a football. It scavenges on the seafloor, feeding on whatever falls from above. Its compound eyes are large and reflective, giving it an unsettling stare. Its body is armored and segmented. It can roll into a ball when threatened, and while it moves slowly, there's something about its proportions, its patience, that feels wrong to the surface-trained eye. Giant isopods can go years without eating. In aquarium studies, some individuals have refused food for over 4 years and still survived. Their metabolism is so slow, their energy requirements so minimal that they simply wait. And when food finally comes, they can gorge, storing energy in their bodies for the next long fast. They are the ultimate patients, creatures that have learned that in the abyss, waiting is the only strategy that works. There's also the phenomenon of abyssal gigantism, where deep-sea creatures grow larger than their shallow water relatives. Giant squid, giant spider crabs, giant amphipods. Scientists aren't entirely sure why this happens. It may be related to the cold, which slows metabolism and allows longer growth periods. Cells continue to divide, slowly, for decades. It may be an adaptation to scarce food, with larger bodies able to store more energy for longer periods. Or it may simply be that in the absence of many predators, there's less pressure to stay small. Bigger bodies take longer to starve. Whatever the reason, the result is that the abyss occasionally produces creatures that seem scaled wrong, too large for their environment, too ancient in their design, too patient in their movements. And when we see them, even in photographs, something in our brain registers them as wrong, as dangerous, as other.
The abyssal plains are also home to creatures that seem more like plants than animals. Sea lilies, also called crinoids, wave their feathery arms in the slow currents, filtering organic particles from the water. They're echinoderms, relatives of starfish and sea urchins, but they look like flowers growing from the seafloor. Some are stalked, anchored to the bottom like strange underwater ferns. Others are free-swimming, able to move slowly across the seafloor in search of better feeding grounds. There are also glass sponges, delicate structures made of silica, the same material as window glass. They filter nutrients from the water and can live for thousands of years. Some glass sponge reefs have been growing for 9,000 years, longer than human civilization has existed. They're among the oldest living structures on Earth, quietly filtering the water and the darkness, generation after generation, century after century. The sea cucumber is another common resident of the abyss. These soft-bodied creatures crawl across the seafloor, ingesting sediment and extracting whatever organic material they can find. Some species make up over 90% of the biomass on certain parts of the abyssal plain. They're not glamorous, they're not terrifying in the traditional sense, but there's something eerie about their abundance. These soft, pale bodies covering the seafloor like a living carpet, processing the mud, extracting the last traces of nutrition from a world where nutrition is almost non-existent. And then there are the Dumbo octopuses, named for the ear-like fins they use to swim. They're among the deepest dwelling octopuses known, living at depths up to 7,000 meters. Unlike their shallow water relatives, Dumbo octopuses swallow their prey whole. They don't have the beak strength to tear apart food like other octopuses do. Their bodies are soft and gelatinous, adapted to the pressure, and they swim with those flapping fins, looking almost comical, almost cute, except that they're hunting in absolute darkness at pressures that would crush a car. And then, below the abyss, there is one more zone, the Hadal Zone. Named after Hades, the Greek underworld. It exists only in the deepest ocean trenches, the Mariana, the Tonga, the Kermadec, the Philippine, the Japan Trench, places where the seafloor drops into narrow, steep-walled canyons that plunge past 6,000 meters, sometimes past 10,000. These are the deepest places on Earth, the closest our planet comes to the void.
The Hadal Zone is not a continuous environment. It's a series of isolated trenches, each one a separate world, cut off from the others by shallower water. Species that evolve in one trench might never encounter species from another trench. It's like a series of isolated islands, but in reverse. Instead of rising above the water, they plunge below it. And the creatures that live in them have evolved in isolation, adapting to conditions found nowhere else on Earth. Very few creatures live here, but the ones that do are among the strangest on Earth. Consider the snailfish, the deepest living fish ever recorded. Specimens have been found at over 8,000 meters. Their bodies are pale, almost translucent. They have no scales. Their bones are reduced, flexible, adapted to resist the crushing pressure. Their muscles contain high concentrations of a compound called TMAO, which stabilizes proteins and prevents them from being deformed by the weight of the water above. Without TMAO, the proteins would bend out of shape, losing their function. The snailfish has literally evolved a chemical solution to the problem of being crushed. The snailfish doesn't look terrifying exactly. It looks fragile, ghostly, almost embryonic. Its skin is thin and pale. Its eyes are small. Its movements are slow and gentle. But there's something about its existence, the fact that it lives in a place so hostile, so remote, so utterly dark, that gives it a kind of quiet horror. It is proof that life finds a way, even into hell. Scientists discovered that snailfish are actually thriving in these trenches, in numbers that surprised everyone. The bottom of the ocean, it turns out, isn't as lifeless as we thought. It's just that the life there is strange, adapted, and very good at hiding. In the Hadal Zone, amphipods also thrive. These small, shrimp-like creatures congregate around any organic matter that reaches the bottom. Drop a piece of bait into the trench, and they will swarm it within hours, appearing from nowhere, thousands of them, feeding with an urgency that suggests they've been waiting a long time. Scientists have lowered cameras into these trenches and watched the amphipods dismantle carcasses with startling speed. In a world where food is almost non-existent, the arrival of anything edible triggers frenzy. And watching that frenzy, the writhing mass of pale bodies in the blackness, is one of the most viscerally unsettling sights the ocean can offer. It's a reminder that even in the deepest, most remote places on Earth, hunger is waiting. And when food comes, it comes alive. The amphipods of the Hadal Zone are also giants compared to their shallow water relatives. Some reach over 30 centimeters in length, the size of a small cat. They're scavengers, opportunists, survivors. They've been down there for millions of years, adapting to the pressure, the cold, the darkness, and they'll be there long after we're gone, waiting in the dark for the next meal to fall.
So why do these creatures seem so terrifying to us? Why do the images from the deep provoke such strong reactions? Fascination mixed with revulsion, wonder mixed with dread. Part of it is simply novelty. We are creatures of the surface. Our brains are wired to recognize the forms that surround us. Mammals, birds, insects, the kinds of fish we see in aquariums and on dinner plates. We know what a normal fish looks like. We know how mouths should proportion it to bodies. We know how eyes should sit in heads. The deep sea offers none of those familiar shapes. Instead, it presents bodies that seem to violate the rules. Mouths too large for the face, eyes that glow in the dark, teeth that seem designed for torment rather than function. These forms don't fit our templates, and when something doesn't fit, the brain flags it as dangerous, as wrong, as something to be avoided. This response is probably ancient, coded into our biology from a time when novel shapes often meant novel dangers. A creature you don't recognize is a creature you can't predict, and a creature you can't predict is a potential threat. The deep sea triggers this ancient warning system over and over again, presenting us with one unrecognizable form after another.
each one setting off a small alarm in the back of our minds. There's also the matter of darkness itself. Humans are deeply, evolutionarily afraid of the dark, not because darkness is inherently harmful, but because in darkness we cannot see what's coming. Our ancestors who feared the dark survived to reproduce. Those who didn't often became something else's meal. The deep ocean is the ultimate expression of that fear. It's not just dark, it's impenetrably dark, eternally dark, and the creatures that live there have adapted to hunt in that darkness, to move unseen, to strike before their prey knows they're there. To the human mind, these creatures feel predatory in a way that goes beyond behavior. They feel designed to frighten us. Their features, the glowing lures, the gaping mouths, the rows of needle teeth, seem almost theatrical, as if they were meant to be seen and feared. Of course, they weren't. These adaptations evolved over millions of years in response to specific environmental pressures. They're not trying to scare us. They don't even know we exist. But our brains don't care about evolutionary logic. They see the teeth and they run. They see the gaping mouth and they recoil. They see the alien shape and they register threat. There's also the element of the unknown. We have better maps of the moon than we do of the ocean floor. The deep sea remains one of the least explored environments on Earth. New species are discovered regularly, and with each new discovery comes the reminder that we don't know what else is down there. The darkness hides more than we've found, and the creatures we have found suggest that the ones we haven't may be strangers still. This uncertainty fuels imagination. When we don't know what's in the dark, we fill it with our fears. Monsters, demons, threats that combine every terrifying feature we can imagine. The deep sea provides the perfect canvas for those projections. It's real enough to ground our fears, but unknown enough to let them expand endlessly. Every time a new creature is photographed or filmed, it confirms that our imagination wasn't wild enough. The reality is stranger than we dreamed. But there's something else going on too, something deeper than fear of the dark or discomfort with unfamiliar shapes. The deep sea confronts us with a version of life that doesn't need us, doesn't care about us, has never seen the sun or breathed air or felt anything we would call warmth. These creatures have been down there for millions of years, evolving in isolation, solving problems we've never faced, and they've done it without any awareness of the world we've built above. There's a kind of existential vertigo in that. We like to think of ourselves as central, the peak of evolution, the stewards of the planet. But the deep sea doesn't know we exist. It doesn't care about our cities, our technologies, our stories. It was thriving before we evolved, and it will likely continue long after we're gone. The creatures there are not subordinate to us. They are parallel to us, a different branch of the tree of life, pursuing a different path. And in their strangeness, we see a mirror, not of what we are, but of what we might have been, or what we might become. Evolution is not a ladder with humans at the top. It's a sprawling, branching experiment, trying everything, discarding most, keeping whatever works. The anglerfish works, the gulper eel works, the giant isopod works. In their own environments, they are just as successful as we are in ours. Perhaps more so. They've been around longer. They've survived conditions that would destroy us. They are masters of a domain we can barely visit. This realization that life can take forms so radically different from our own and still thrive is both humbling and unsettling. It suggests that the universe, or at least the ocean, has a much broader definition of acceptable than we do. That there are viable ways of being alive that we would never have imagined, and that what we find terrifying might just be what works in conditions we can't survive. Let's pause for a moment and consider the sheer creativity of deep-sea evolution, because while the results may disturb us, the process is astonishing. Take bioluminescence, the ability to produce light from your own body. In the deep ocean, this is nearly universal. Over 90% of animals in the midnight zone and below are bioluminescent. They produce light through chemical reactions, usually involving a compound called luciferin, which reacts with oxygen in the presence of an enzyme called luciferase. Different species use different variants of these compounds, producing different colors and intensities of light. The uses of this light are varied and ingenious. Some creatures use it to attract prey, like the anglerfish's lure. Others use it to find mates, flashing specific patterns that signal species and sex. Some use it for defense, ejecting clouds of glowing mucus to confuse predators. The vampire squid, when threatened, releases a cloud of bioluminescent particles, creating a glowing decoy while it escapes into the darkness. Others use counter-illumination, matching the faint light from above to erase their silhouettes. A few even use it as a searchlight, casting beams of red light that most deep-sea creatures can't see, allowing them to hunt invisibly. This is not magic, it's chemistry, but it's chemistry so elegant, so finely tuned, that it feels magical. The deep ocean is a light show with no audience, a silent disco in the abyss, where every flash means something, attracts something, or saves something. And we're only just beginning to understand the language of these lights, the signals being passed back and forth in the darkness, the conversations we can't hear.
Then there's the matter of pressure adaptation. At great depths, the weight of the water above would crush any surface creature. Cells would collapse, proteins would denature, membranes would fail. But deep-sea organisms have evolved biochemical solutions. Their cell membranes contain different fats, more flexible and fluid under pressure. Their proteins are stabilized by compounds like TMAO. Their bodies are often mostly water, which is incompressible, reducing the difference between inside and outside pressure. These adaptations are so specific that many deep-sea creatures cannot survive at the surface. Bring them up too quickly and their bodies fail, not from the lack of pressure, but from the sudden change. The enzymes stop working, the fats behave wrong, the creature dies, not dramatically, but chemically. It simply stops functioning. This is why so many deep-sea creatures are never seen alive. They die on the way up, their bodies unable to cope with the change. And then there's the matter of food. In the deep ocean, almost nothing grows. There's no photosynthesis, no plants, no phytoplankton. The only food comes from above, as marine snow. This is a constant, slow rain of organic particles drifting down from the sunlit zone. Dead plankton, fecal pellets, shed scales, bits of decaying tissue. It's not much. By the time it reaches the seafloor, only about 1 to 3% of the surface productivity remains. That's not enough to support an active, fast-moving ecosystem. So, deep-sea creatures have evolved to be extremely efficient. They move slowly, conserving energy. They wait patiently, sometimes for months, for food to arrive. They eat whatever they can, including each other. And when food does come, in the form of a whale fall or a sudden bloom, they gorge, storing energy for the long famine ahead. This is not a world of abundance, it's a world of scarcity, and the creatures that live there are built for endurance, not speed, patience, not aggression. They are survivors in the purest sense, outlasting conditions that would kill anything else. There's one more layer to consider: the psychological impact of depth itself. When we imagine the deep ocean, we're not just imagining creatures, we're imagining the space around them, the vast, empty, crushing, silent space. The midnight zone alone spans from 1,000 to 4,000 meters. That's 3 kilometers of vertical darkness. No floor, no ceiling, no reference points, just black water in every direction. For a human, this would be disorienting beyond words. We are creatures of solid ground, of light, of surfaces to touch and landmarks to navigate by. The open ocean, especially at night, is already unsettling. But the deep ocean takes that discomfort and multiplies it by an order of magnitude. There's no up or down, no left or right, no near or far, just darkness and pressure and the occasional flash of bioluminescence, there and gone before you can understand what made it.
The creatures that live there are at home in that emptiness. They navigate by senses we barely understand. Pressure waves, chemical gradients, faint electrical fields generated by muscle movement, the lateral line, a sense organ that detects vibrations in the water. They find each other in the darkness through signals that would be invisible to us, and they do so with apparent ease, as if the void were as familiar to them as a forest path is to us. This contrast between their comfort and our terror is part of what makes them so unsettling. They belong somewhere we can never go. They thrive in conditions that would kill us instantly, and when we see images of them, captured by cameras or brought up in nets, we're seeing ambassadors from a world that doesn't want us and doesn't need us. It's worth noting that the deep sea is also a place of remarkable fragility. For all the terrifying adaptations, for all the pressure and darkness and cold, these ecosystems are vulnerable. Deep-sea creatures reproduce slowly, they grow slowly, their populations are sparse and widely scattered. A disturbance that might barely affect a surface ecosystem could devastate a deep-sea community for centuries. Deep-sea mining, bottom trawling, climate change, these are all threats to environments we barely understand. The creatures of the abyss have survived for millions of years through ice ages and extinctions in the slow rearrangement of continents, but they may not survive us. The irony is bitter. The most extreme, most adapted creatures on Earth might be destroyed by a species that can't even visit their world without dying. There's something in that fragility that balances the fear. These terrifying creatures are also vulnerable. They're not monsters, they're survivors, ancient and efficient and strange. They didn't choose their forms, they grew into them over millions of years in response to pressures we can barely imagine. And now they face a new pressure, one that comes from above, from a species that finds them terrifying and fascinating and expendable. As we near the end of this descent, it's worth stepping back and asking what all this means, not scientifically, but emotionally, philosophically. The deep ocean is real. The creatures we've talked about are real. They're not mythical monsters or products of imagination. They're animals, shaped by millions of years of evolution, doing what all life does, surviving, reproducing, passing on their genes. They don't know they're terrifying. They don't know they're beautiful. They simply are. But they also feel like metaphors for the unknown, for the parts of existence we can't control or comprehend, for the limits of our own bodies and minds. The deep sea is a reminder that the world is larger than we are, that there are places beyond our reach, beyond our understanding, beyond our ability to imagine until we see them with our own eyes. And maybe that's why we find these creatures so compelling, not just because they're strange, but because they represent something, the edge of what we know, the beginning of what we don't. They are boundary creatures, living at the threshold of human perception, reminding us that the map has edges, and that beyond those edges, life continues without us. There's a kind of comfort in that, if you look at it right. The world doesn't depend on us. Life found a way before we existed, and will find a way after we're gone. The deep sea, with all its strangeness, is proof of that. Proof that life is adaptable, persistent, creative in ways we can't predict. Proof that even in the most hostile places, something is always waiting. Something is always alive. So as you settle in for the night, perhaps let this thought linger. You are on a planet that is mostly water, and most of that water is deep. And in that depth, right now, as you listen to these words, creatures are moving that you will never see. Flashing lights in the blackness, opening vast mouths, waiting patiently for something to fall from above, living their entire lives in pressure that would destroy you in an instant. They are not aware of you. They have no concept of the sky, of the sun, of land. They don't know about continents or cities or the internet or sleep podcasts. They live in a parallel world, separated from yours by a few kilometers of water and a wall of pressure. And yet, you share an ancestor with them. Somewhere billions of years ago, your lineage diverged. They went down, you went up. And now, across that immense distance, you're thinking about them. There's something oddly comforting in that. Not in the creatures themselves, which are still unsettling, still alien, but in the connection, in the shared thread of life that links you to the anglerfish, the viperfish, the hagfish, the snailfish. You are different branches of the same tree, and the tree is older and stranger than you can imagine. It has roots that go down into darkness you'll never see. Sleep well tonight. Let your body drift into the darkness of rest, knowing that somewhere below you, in the darkness of the deep, life continues. Strange, patient, resilient life. Life that doesn't need light. Life that doesn't need warmth. Life that found a way, even in the most hostile place on Earth.
And maybe, just maybe, that's not terrifying at all. Maybe it's beautiful, a reminder that life is stubborn, that it goes where it can, that it adapts, persists, survives, even in hell, even in the abyss, even at the bottom of the world. Something is always alive. Something is always waiting. Something is always finding a way. You are part of that stubbornness, that persistence, that ancient urge to keep going, no matter what. You are part of the same force that pushes life into the deepest trenches, that makes the anglerfish glow, that allows the snailfish to thrive where nothing should survive. It's in you. It's always been in you. So close your eyes now. Let the pressure of the day ease off. Let your thoughts sink slowly, gently into the quiet. The deep is waiting, but not for you, not tonight. Tonight, you rest on the surface, safe and warm, dreaming perhaps of distant lights in the darkness, of creatures you'll never meet, of a world beneath the world that continues endlessly without you. And if you dream of the deep, don't be afraid. They're not hunting you. They don't even know you exist. They're just living their lives, as strange as those lives are, in a place beyond your reach. They're part of the same world you are, just a different corner of it. A darker corner, a deeper corner, but still the same world. Good night, surface dweller. Sleep well. And if you wake in the night thinking of teeth and darkness and pressure and cold, remember this. Those creatures have survived for millions of years. They've faced extinction and ice ages and the slow death of the sun's light. And they're still there, still waiting, still alive. That's not a threat. That's a promise. That life goes on, that the world is full of survivors, and that you, too, are one of them. Sleep now. The deep can wait.